Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Antaryashcha Bahirvidutatimiram Jyotirmayam Shashvatam Thanam Prapya Virajate Vinamata Ajnanamunmulayan Pashyan Vishwamapidamullasatiyo Vishwasya Pariparaha Tasmai Shri Ramanaya Lokagurave Shokasya Hantri Namaha. Okay, so let's chant verses 1 to 10. You all have your books. If you don't have your book, please sit with someone who has a book and let's get back. Okay? Karturajnaya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjaram kriti mahodadau patana karanam phalam shashvatam gati nirodhakam Ishwararpitam nechaya kritam Chittashodhakam mukti sadhakam Kayavamanaha karyamuttamam Pujanam japaschintanam kramam Jagyata ishadhi yukta sevanam Ashtamurti bhreti bhapujanam Uttamastavat uchchamandataha Chittajam japadhyanavuttam Ajadharaya srotasasamam Saralachintanam viralatakparam Bheva bhavana sohamityaso Pavana bida pavani mata Bhavashunya sad bhavasustiti Bhavana bala bhaktiruttama Ritsthale manaha swastata kriya Bhakti Yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Okay, so we have done the first 10 verses, and we also started the first part of Ashtanga Yoga. So I know we haven't met in a bit, so I'll just review a little bit and then we will go forward. In verse number 10, it said that the goal of all paths is only one. It's only one. What's the goal of all paths? It's rest. It's to find that rest in our own selves. So in Karma Yoga, what is Karma Yoga trying to do? Karma Yoga is trying to free our stress, our tension, our pressure by helping us to focus on the present and just focus on the process and get lost in the action. So if we're doing Karma Yoga the right way, it means that we are lost in the present moment itself. There's a self-forgetfulness and nothing else is there. No past, no future, not even the present. Not even the present is there because you are lost in that. You're lost in that. So there's no concept of time. So if we are doing Karma Yoga correctly, then there is rest. There's absolute rest amidst all activity. If we are doing Bhakti Yoga correctly, there is rest. In Bhakti Yoga, what we aim to do is lose our individuality in totality, lose that jiva in Ishwara. So, therefore, the mind is free from worry because in the path of bhakti or devotion, there's absolute faith that Bhagavan will take care of us, Ishwara will take care of us. We don't need to worry. We just need to do whatever we have to do, and that's it. We are in the lap of the mother. We are in her lap. And if we fall, we are just falling from her shoulders to her lap. That's all, right? So in Bhakti Yoga, there's an absolute spirit of rest because there's no worry. There's faith that we will be taken care of. In Ashtanga Yoga, there is rest because there's no thoughts. And we will see that today. Today, that is the topic. Ashtanga Yoga from asana, pranayama, etc. The mind comes to a state where all thoughts cease. So when that happens, there is just rest. We feel recharged, we feel refreshed. But here's an issue. In Karma Yoga, we feel that rest when we lose ourselves in the action. But when we come out of that, again, we're in this world. Again, we're bombarded by things. In Bhakti Yoga, we find rest when our faith is so incredibly strong. But when there's something that breaks the faith, then again, we're bombarded by worry and tension. In Ashtanga Yoga, we find rest when we come into a thoughtless state, Shavasana, in a yoga class. But after that Shavasana, again, we're bombarded with all the things that we have to do. So the path of Jnana Yoga, or knowledge, is one of absolute rest, which means that whether we're in a practice or out of a practice, we are just in absolute rest. And that is the goal, abidance of the mind, the heart. So that's what we saw in verse number 10. And we have completed Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. And we have also completed yamas and niyamas. And I think you all had a discussion on yamas and niyamas, right? Correct? So we saw the 5 yamas, right? Ahimsa. I'm on page 31 now in the book, so you can follow along with me. Should be around that page for you. Ahimsa, non-violence. Satya, truthfulness. Asteya, non-stealing. Brahmacharya, continence. Aparigraha, non-hoarding. These are the yamas. So ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Then the 5 niyamas are shaucha, inner purity and outer cleanliness, santosha, contentment, tapaha, austerity, svadhyaya, study of the scriptures, and Ishwara pranidhana, surrender to God. Now we're going to take up number 3, which is asana. Asana has 2 meanings, okay? One is a posture and one is our actual seat. So in Ashtanga Yoga, because it's got 8 limbs, so we're trying to get to a meditative practice. And the basis of the meditative practice are following these yamas and niyamas. After that, we should get established in asana. What is this the posture that we have to adapt? Where the neck, the back, and the head have to be in a straight line. So whenever we're sitting, that's why in parent satsang, we ask everybody to sit on the ground as far as possible. To develop a posture where the back, the neck, the head are all in one straight line. The sutra or the definition for asana is sthiram Sukham Asana. Stira means where we are grounded. Usually we cross our legs. We cross our legs so that we're grounded and we keep everything straight because the energy flows very freely when the back is straight. And asana also should be sukham, means comfortable. Not something we're straining, like so many times we're strain. Not like that. But where we're at ease with that posture. Swami Shivananda-ji says, we have mastered our posture when we can sit 3 hours without moving. But before that, let's try to master at least 20 minutes without moving. This is essential. If we want to build a meditative practice, at least 20 minutes without movement should be our asana. So grounded, straight, and comfortable. In order to do that, that means we have to work out, we have to exercise. Because if we're sitting in the computer the whole day, we're going to get aches here, aches everywhere. So we have to be working out. We have to be walking. We have to be doing yoga. We have to be moving in order to have that firm posture. So one aspect of asana is a posture. Now, with this posture, why was it so important in our culture, in our gurukulas, in our schools, that people sat straight, sat still? Because the posture is a direct reflection of the mind. We can see how the person's mind is based on how they sit. So if somebody is shrinking a lot, somebody is moving a lot, it's the mind moving. But if somebody is able to just sit still, it means the mind is absolutely still. So just from the posture, the teachers could tell how the student is, how the mind of the student is, whether the mind is here or not here, just by the posture. So asana, posture. Another meaning of asana is a seat, an actual seat. When we sit down for any spiritual practice, we have to have an actual seat to keep the body warm. The seat, the body, should not be in a surface that's too hard or too soft, not too high, not too low, not too cold, not too hot. So it's always good to have a seat. Could be a cloth, could be a mat, where we have our practice. And when we have this seat, nobody else should be able to sit in that seat. Because that seat carries your vibration. So whenever you sit in that seat, it's understood that now I'm going to meditate. Or now I'm going to be quiet. Now I'm going to keep my eyes closed. So that is what asana means. Before we start any practice of going within, first, body has to be grounded. One way to make the body very grounded before we meditate or go inwards is to do a body scan. When we do a body scan from our feet all the way to the head and we relax each body part, then it brings a sense of calmness and ease. That is called asana. Okay? So this is number 3 in Ashtanga Yoga practice. Asana. Asana is clear? Yes? Everyone sitting in a comfortable asana? Steady, solid asana? Yes. Back straight? Yes. Unfortunately, I have to sit in an office chair because that's just the way the setup is. Otherwise, I would have also loved to be on the floor. Okay, now we're going to number 4, which is pranayama. Now, one note for asana before we go to pranayama. Whenever we have a choice whether to sit in the floor or in the chair, please sit more on the floor. Then develop this habit to sit on the floor. because it's an ideal posture that keeps the back incredibly straight. Pranayama, number 4. Now we've heard this term before. Pranayama means control of breath. Control of breath. So in Ashtanga Yoga, there's what we call Puraka, Rechaka, and Kumbhaka. Puraka means inhalation, Rechaka, exhalation. Kumbhaka is when we hold the breath. Now, this practice of pranayama is not something that anybody can just do or anybody should just do. It has to be under somebody who you have to train under someone, basically. We have to train under someone to learn pranayama properly. Because when we start to adjust the breathing, certain things get affected in our body. Sometimes we might, because of pranayama, we might be eating much, much more. Or we might be sleeping much less. So we have to train under someone because these pranayamas, these different exercises have a direct effect on our body rhythm. But what we can safely do with pranayama is watch the breathing. So simple things we can do with pranayama is watch the breath. Another simple thing which we can do with pranayama is take deep breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. These simple practices we can do. And the next few verses are going to elaborate about pranayama, so I won't elaborate too much here now. But when the next verses come up, we will discuss pranayama in depth. Okay. Number 5 is called pratyahara. So you see, it's getting subtler and subtler, right? So the first 2 steps were about how we should live our lives. Then the third step, asana, how to treat our bodies. The fourth step is how to handle our breath. The fifth step, pratyahara, is the ability to withdraw the senses at will. It means that whenever we want to bring our senses inward, we should be able to do that. Because when we're trying to sit for meditation, sometimes we hear something, we hear a sound, sometimes we see something, sometimes we smell something. So it's the ability to just shut off the senses and take it back to the mind. In our scriptures, a beautiful example is given of the sun. If you take the sun to be the mind and the rays to be the senses. And what pratyahara means is every time you want to bring the senses in, you should be able to, just like the rays can come in towards the sun. So anytime that we feel we need to bring our senses in, just imagine that you're tracing the rays of the sun from outside, inside, and it's now set in mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, there's a very beautiful, profound example of a tortoise. A tortoise, whenever it senses danger, it takes all of its limbs and puts it under its shell. That's why when we go to Hindu temples, many times we'll see a tortoise or turtle in the entrance. What is that telling us? That's telling us now, withdraw all of your senses from everything else. Because when we go to a temple, we tend to look at what people are wearing. What is the prasadam? What's going on? We're not going within. So it's telling us withdraw and come in to your sanctum sanctorum. So in the same way, pratyahara is that ability to now just take my senses within. Now, when I've established my seat, when I have just followed my breath, and when I have withdrawn my senses, now what do I do? Because all of my energy is now conserved. So I take the next step, which is called dharana. Dharana is step number 6. It means that I now have to take my mind and tie it to something. I have to tie it to something that will hold it. So in the path of bhakti, we tie the mind to a name or a form of Ishwara. So let us say somebody worships Hanumanji. So they tie their mind to the form of Hanumanji. Or if somebody worships Saraswati Devi, they tie their mind to the form of Saraswati Devi. And literally, you imagine now, pratyahara is like you withdrawing your senses. Now, imagine that you're tying your mind to that form. It should not go anywhere else. You make a knot, a ribbon, and you just tie it. That's called dharana. Dharana, you tie. In the path of Ashtanga Yoga, sometimes they tie it to a certain chakra. So some of you may be going to yoga classes or doing other practices that they tie it to a certain chakra. They ask you to focus on certain chakra in Ashtanga Yoga, or focus on a light. Focus on the light, or focus on a sound. They tie the mind. When we get to Jnana Yoga, we tie the mind to knowledge, to a Mahavakya, to a great statement that I am that pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure bliss. We tie the mind to that knowledge, right? So that step of dharana is I have to find what to tie my mind to. And that's why having an Ishta Devata helps, really, really helps, because it builds focus. And just one, I know we talked about people shifting here and there, that all doesn't work. Each of us have to have a point that we always tie our minds to, and it should be the same point. Don't shift here and there, go here and there. Same thing. Hold your mind there, and it gets straight. It gets straight and it stays there. So that part is important in all spiritual practice. What am I tying my mind to? Because if I don't tie it to anything, it will fall all over the place. So dharana, dharana. Now the next step, number 7, is called dhyana. Dhyana literally means contemplation. Now what happens in dhyana is that, okay, I have tied my mind. Let's say I have tied my mind to a form. Let's say I've picked a form. I've tied my mind to a form. Dhyana means having now all thoughts just go towards that. Just go towards that. We saw it also in Bhakti, right? And in the first part, it will be interrupted only. Be like, my mind is going to that form and then it's going away. It's going to that form and then it's going away. It's going to that form, it's going away. So it looks like my thoughts are like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. And that is absolutely okay. That's absolutely okay. What we have to do is just seek grace and say, Bhagavan, you bring my mind back. Bring my mind back. And when we start to practice it, what happens is the mind now has the ability to just steadily contemplate. It doesn't do this too much anymore. It'll do this and then maybe a little bit, do this and then a little bit. And eventually, it'll be a single pointed thought flow. And that is the epitome of dhyana. When uninterruptedly my thoughts are flowing to that object that I tied myself to. It's flowing. It's flowing with effort, but it's flowing continuously and it's just going there. That's called dhyana. Now the last one, samadhi, the 8th limb, what Ashtanga Yoga wants us to get to is samadhi here can be equated to absorption. Absorption meaning that now all the thoughts are just absorbed into that. And there's no more effort. There's no more effort. There's no more me making my thoughts go there. It's just going, and the thoughts just get absorbed into that object which I contemplated on. And so it's like autopilot. And it's just thoughtless, absolutely thoughtless, because everything is just absorbed in that form. A beautiful example is this. Let us say that somebody wants to learn how to play a musical instrument. Anybody plays a musical instrument here? You please? No? Okay. So let's say any of your kids play. I'm sure your kids play, right? Yeah. So let us say if somebody wants to play or learn how to play a musical instrument. Yeah? So what do they have to do? They have to sit their asana, set that aside, and then they have to just relax themselves before they touch that instrument. And then withdraw all of their senses, put their phones away, put everything away, withdraw all of their senses and bring it to their mind. Then in our culture, we pray to that instrument before we touch the instrument. We seek grace and blessings because that is Saraswati. We pray, we tie ourselves to that instrument. Then we start to play that instrument. So let's say if I'm playing a harmonium, start playing. Get very focused, very concentrated. It's just in that rhythm. That's called dhyana. And then at some point, it will be completely effortless, where my fingers are just moving. I'm not even thinking about what I'm playing. How am I playing? I'm not even looking at the sheet to see what notes are there. It's just coming and flowing, and it's just happening. That's called samadhi. Samadhi. And that's completely thoughtless because you're just merged into that. You've lost yourself into that. Right? So the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is to come to this point of samadhi. And that is how people find rest in Ashtanga Yoga. It's not permanent rest, but it is something that helps us to recharge. And this is also a path. Like in this text, we're seeing Karma Yoga as a path, Bhakti Yoga as a path, Ashtanga Yoga as a path. So it's also a very beautiful path. It's also an applicable path for everybody. But this is their purpose, to get into the state of samadhi. Samadhi. Okay? So this is clear so far? Yeah? Just give me a thumbs up if this is clear. Yeah? Okay. So now we're going to go into the next verse, number 11, where he's going to elaborate on pranayama. So I'll chant. The first time I chant, you listen. The second time, you chant with me. Vayurodhanaliyate manaha. Vayurodhanaliyate manaha. Jalapakshivadrodhasadhanam. Jalapakshivadrodhasadhanam. Now we'll chant this together. Vayurodhanaliyate manaha. Jalapakshivadrodhasadhanam. Okay. So Vayurodhanat. Vayurodhanat means by the restraint. Rodhana means restraint of prana, of Vayu. Liyate manaha, the mind becomes absorbed. How is it? Jalapakshivat, like ensnaring or the catching of birds on a net. Rodhasadhanam, it is a means of control or check. So by the restraint of the pranas or breathing, the mind becomes absorbed. This is a means of checking the mind, like the net that is used to ensnare birds. So in the West, the practice of mindfulness is very, very common, right? And this verse is stressing the importance of pranayama. How important is pranayama? When we start to control our breath, what happens? First, let's look at the example, and then we will look at what it does for us. So if you just imagine a hunter, is out in the forest and wants to catch some birds to sell, let us say. So the hunter will get some seeds, some bird seeds, and put it around. Then the birds will come to eat those seeds. And then the hunter will put a huge net over the birds. And when he does all of that, then the birds cannot fly away and flutter away. They're held. They're held by that hunter. But what is that example? The hunter has to keep holding the birds. The hunter has to keep holding the birds through the net. And the minute that the hunter lets go of the net, what happens to the birds? They fly again. They fly away freely. So this is not a permanent solution. It's not a permanent solution. This is a solution to help us get through the day sometimes, to have that peace of mind sometimes, but it's not permanent. Huh? So now let's take this example and see what this means in our life. Our thoughts are like birds. They're like birds. They're running everywhere all the time, fluttering, flapping their wings here and there. And we give them some food. We say, okay, now I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do my sadhana. So we give them some motivation, some incentive, and that breathing, that breath control, or making deep inhalations or exhalations, because we are focusing on it so deeply, it's like a net. It's like a net that catches all of our thoughts. And well, what does it do? It catches all of our thoughts for some time. For some time. And it catches our thoughts for some time. We're able to be calm. We're able to be peaceful. We're able to slow down. And after that, boom. When we're not focusing on our breath anymore, the thoughts go wild, like the birds go wild. Huh? So this pranayama is a powerful practice for us to slow down, to calm down, to just be for some time. But the minute that we let go, again, the thoughts go wild. This is what it's saying. Now, why is prana and the mind so connected? So now we will see verse number 12. Chittavayavaschitkriyayutaha Chittavayavaschitkriyayutaha Shakhayorдваи Shaktimulaka Shakhayorдваи Shaktimulaka Chittavayavaschitkriyayutaha Shakhayorдваи Shaktimulaka. So chitta and vayavaha. So chitta means the mind, vayavaha means the vital airs, chit kriya yuta. They are endowed with knowledge and the activizing force. Shakayoho dvai. They're like two branches. Shakti mulaka. And the root cause of it being Maya, the power of the Lord. So the mind and the vital airs are endowed with knowledge and activizing power, respectively. These are two branches of one basic power of the Lord. So here it is giving us a trick of how to control the mind. one very beautiful thing Puja Guruji has said to us. I'm in Kerala with Swami Tejamanandaji, the former head of Chinmay Mission. And he said that, you know, I only want one Facebook follower. I only want one Facebook follower. And that Facebook follower should be my mind. Because if my mind is following me, then everything is fine. But if my mind is not following me and everybody else is following me, then what's the point? I'm a mess, right? So, one way to bring the mind under control is this, the breath. Now, let's see the example and then we will see what it means for us. Let us say that you're in a forest. Now, we were in a forest with a hunter and with nets and with birds. Now you're in a forest again, okay? You're in a forest again, and this time you're in front of a mango tree. You're in front of a mango tree, and but the mango is too high. It's quite high, the branch where the mango is. But there's a lower branch. So what you do is you catch the lower branch because you can reach the lower branch. And when you catch the lower branch, the higher branch comes down, and then you're able to pluck that mango. Why? Because these two branches, they have the same trunk. They're from the same trunk. So in the same way, the prana, the energizing force, and the mind, the knowledge force, their root is Maya. Both of them have the same root. They're two branches, they have the same root. So we will notice that however our breath is, our mind is. And however our mind is, our breath is. So when we are angry, the breathing is very fast. When we are upset, the breathing is like, when we're stressed. When we're very calm, the breathing is slow. So the mind and the breath are exactly connected. So just like we can tell how the person is through their asana, how the person's mind is through the way they are sitting, the same way we can tell how a person is through their breath. So if I want to control my mind at any time, if I want to slow down at any time, control the breath. Just take deep breaths. It's such a simple practice. Take deep breath. Take a deep inhale. Take a deep exhale. Just relax and just be. Slow down. Sometimes we feel like spiritual life is, we have to be able to accomplish so many things, do so many things, go here, go there. That's not spiritual life. Spiritual life is simplifying life. If my life is so complicated and I have so many things going on, it's not a spiritual life. The simpler my life is, the more spiritual it is. That's it. The simpler my relationships are, the simpler my tasks are, the simpler my communication is, the simpler life is, the more spiritual we are. So that breathing helps us slow down, helps us to slow the mind down so that we can think clearly. We can focus clearly and we can get absorbed in our object of contemplation. And when we do that, we will find relaxation. So these two, mind and pranas, are directly linked. Now, it's easier to control, manipulate the pranas to then manipulate the mind. But the other can also be done. Let us say the breathing is so heavy. I can talk to my mind and make it calm down, and the breathing will also slow down. So we can work both ways. You can work from the breath to the mind, which is easier. You can also work from the mind to the breath. Now, having said this, how important it is to slow down, to control the breath, to pace ourselves, to pause. Having said this, this is just a band-aid solution. Just a band-aid solution. In the next verse, it's going to draw a beautiful contrast. The path of Ashtanga Yoga and the path of knowledge. Right? Very, very beautiful verse. And we'll take a look at it so we understand what each path actually does. Okay, number 30. Laya vinashane ubhayarodhane. Laya vinashane ubhayarodhane. Laya gatam punar bhavati no mritam. Laya gatam punar bhavati no mritam. So here, we'll chant it now together. Laya vinashane ubhayarodhane. Laya gatam punar bhavati no mritam. So there are two things that can happen with the mind. One is called laya. Laya means absorption. One is called vinasha. Vinasha means destruction. So there are two. Laya, absorption. Vinasha, destruction. Ubhaya rodhane, right? So by the destruction of both, laya gatam, the mind that has gone to absorption, punaha bhavati, is born again. Na umritam, but not the dead mind. So absorption of the mind, manolaya, and destruction of the mind, manonasha, they occur by the restraint of both prana and the mind, respectively. The absorbed mind comes back, but never indeed the dead mind. What does this mean? In the practice of Ashtanga Yoga, as we said, there is that mind, which we slow the mind down, we tie it to an object, we contemplate, we get absorbed in that object, and we come into a thoughtless state, and we feel absolute relaxation in samadhi. But guess what happens? When we come out of samadhi, again there's noise, again there's ruckus, again there's the world, again there's all of this going on. So what tends to happen in the path of Ashtanga Yoga is people just want quietude. They just want to get into the state of samadhi because they feel such peace and they don't want to go back into the world. They don't want to go back out. They just want to go from one yoga class to another yoga class, from one shavasana to another shavasana, from one samadhi to another samadhi, because they find so much peace there, they just don't want to get back into the world. So they like to go for these retreats, for these grounding retreats, just to be by themselves, because again, to face the world is too much. That's called laya. But in knowledge, what happens is not just an absorption of mind, but what happens is a destruction of mind. What do we mean by destruction of mind? It means knowing that the mind is essentially consciousness. And this will become clear later on when we talk about the path of Jnana Yoga from verse 17 onwards. It is like this. A simple example for us to understand is the waves and water. Right? Waves. In Ashtanga Yoga, what are we trying to do? We're trying to still the waves. We're trying to still the waves, and I want to keep the waves stilled all the time. And when the waves are stilled all the time, then I am at peace. Because the waves are still, the waves are still, the waves are still. But in Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, we come to understand that it's okay if the waves are stilled, or it's okay if they're going up and down, because you are not the wave. You are water. You are not the mind. You are conscious. And the mind is essentially conscious. And so when we understand that, it doesn't matter. Not that the people in the path of knowledge don't still their mind, they do. But whether the mind is still or whether it's moving, it does not matter because you're not the mind. The very fact of identifying with the mind, that has been destroyed. So when that has been destroyed by the power of knowledge, when we come out of the meditation seat, it's fine. Let the world be there. It's fine. Let people be there. Let family be there. It's fine. It's fine because everything is that same reality. There's nothing that can harm us. There's nothing that can affect us. There's nothing that can bring us down. Everything is that one reality. And that's why for a jnani or somebody who has knowledge, they don't mind. Mind or no mind, they don't mind. So one is really trying to control the mind, trying to absorb it, trying to get into a state of samadhi, trying to be quiet, trying to still the mind. The other, the path of knowledge, we can also still the mind, no problem. But it's not making the mind still all the time. It doesn't have to be. That's the nature of the mind. It's going to be still sometimes. It's going to be, moving sometimes. That's absolutely okay. So what we have to aim for is a deeper understanding of the mind. Not just making it quiet, but knowing that it is truly consciousness. It is truly awareness. And that is our nature. That is our nature. See, when we see everything as just us, that pure awareness, what happens? What happens is it's very free. Because any thought comes, it goes, it's coming from you and it's going into you. It's not you. So anger thought will come and then it will dissolve. Peaceful thought will come and then it will dissolve. Happy thought will come, it will dissolve. The most beautiful thing is it's arising and it's dissolving in you, and you've got nothing to do with those thoughts. That is very free. That is very free. So thoughts or no thoughts, you're absolutely fine. So today we'll just stop with this verse because there's a lot to think about in this verse. I'll just summarize, and then if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them. So today what we talked about was pranayama, the practice of breath control, either watching the breath, taking deep breaths. So before that, asana, sitting steadily, pranayama, controlling our breath, pratyahara, bringing our sense organs in, dharana, tying ourselves to an object, dhyana, contemplating, and samadhi, getting absorbed in that. And we also saw verses 11 to 13, where in verse 11, we saw clearly how the breath can affect the mind. If the breath is like a net, you slow it down, you can capture all of the thoughts and just make them freeze for some time. But the minute we get back out, all the thoughts will fly again. And in verse number 12, we saw how the breath and the mind are interconnected. I want to slow down my mind, slow down the breath. I want to slow down the breath, slow down the mind. Like they're like two branches of the same tree. And in the final verse, verse number 13, we really saw that yes, Ashtanga Yoga practices are beautiful, but remember they're temporary. That we cannot be in meditation all the time. We cannot be in samadhi all the time. We cannot be stilling our minds all the time. We have to know the nature of the mind so that wherever we are, we're absolutely fine, we're absolutely free. Your nature is free. Your nature is freedom. It is you who are tying yourself to bondage. I might have told you this one example before, but there was a man who was hugging a tree. And then he shouted, "Free me, free me, free me from this tree." And one wise person came and said, "Well, you're the one holding it. You have to let go." So the same way, we're all holding to all of our attachments. We're holding on to all of our attachments. And we're saying, "Oh my gosh, we're so bound by this. We're so stressed by it. We're so this by it." Oh, why aren't you letting go? We are the ones holding on. We are the ones who have to let go. Right? Okay. I'll stop here. Anybody has any questions or any thoughts they want to share, you can feel free to raise your hand or speak up.
In a day, should we like meditate or just to get the practice?
So are you in every day should we meditate? Is that your
Yeah,
question?
like for how many minutes to just get into the practice?
20 minutes.
Yeah.
As I said, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, right? So let the goal be 20 minutes, but start with 5. Start with 5. If we are not accustomed to it, start with 5. But for 5 minutes, sit absolutely still. Don't move. Don't move for 5 minutes. Huh? Even if the mind is wandering, going all over the place, just do a body scan. That's easy enough for us to do. Do a body scan, do some deep breathing. If you want to do some japa, do a japa, but start with 5 minutes a day. Now, this is for everybody. We must at least be sitting peacefully 5 minutes a day. If we're not doing that, that's a big problem. That's a big problem because that means we're functioning too fast. So 5 minutes, just be still 5 minutes. That's all. Huh? Once you've mastered 5 minutes, add 2-3 minutes, add 2-3 minutes, add 2-3 minutes, till we get to a place of 20 minutes comfortably. It should be our foothold that every morning, at least 20 minutes, I can sit peacefully, do my japa, or contemplate on something deeply. Right? Any other questions or thoughts? Yes, yeah.
We say that we are not our mind. I think the way to meditate would get
Yeah. Can you come closer to the computer? That would be helpful.
when the book is saying that we're not our mind, and I read another book. Think of it as you're not your thoughts, you're actually like the observer of your thoughts, so you can kind of step above it and try to just neutrally observe your thoughts. Is that kind of the same concept?
Yes, but you see, now this observing the thoughts now comes in stages, okay? So first, it's actually the ego observing the thoughts. So let's say you know when you're happy, you know when you're sad, right? You know when you're happy, you know when you're sad, you know when you're mad. That is the ego. That's not what we're referring to. We're referring to the Atman or the pure consciousness, which is just observing without any voice, without any thought, just observing. So if you sit quietly you will begin to understand that you are the observer. That's your nature. Your nature is not the thought, because the thought keeps coming and it keeps going, and thought keeps changing. But you're there all the time. So one reason why we sit quietly is to connect to that observer, to get grounded that I am the observer, I'm not the thought. So anytime that the thought gets overwhelming, just withdraw from it. You're the observer of it. When we get too involved with the thought, we give it too much power. But when we withdraw from the thought, it loses its power and we just remain as observer. And many people ask this question, if we remain as the observer, what will happen? Who will do all my work? It will happen. It will happen. But it will happen in a very relaxed way. You just have to trust it. Okay? When I'm there next week, we'll do some exercises so this can become clearer for everybody. But for this week, I want everyone to take at least 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes in the morning. Just where you're absolutely still. Just be still for 5 minutes every day. Huh? Yes? Can you all commit to that? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
We have
Okay, we'll say the closing prayer. Seeing now the kids come, we'll say the closing prayer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari